When you're good.
Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Scherer, and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Happy St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 2020. Robert Harding, Justin Ritzel are with us. Nobody's wearing green. Oh, well, the world will survive.
Well, my bank account has plenty of green in it, thanks to that stimmy, folks.
Oh, you got
boy, never been so rich.
You got your stimulus. Congratulations.
That's right.
All righty. So we're going to talk a little NFL because, hey, we're in the middle of free agency. I shouldn't say the middle. We're at the beginning of the free agency period. The new league year officially just started 6 minutes ago. So we are officially in the 2021 NFL season. Oh, it feels so good. And that's what we're going to talk about, free agency. But before we get to free agency, Drew Brees finally announced his retirement on Sunday. I guess he wanted to wait until 15 years to the day that he signed with New Orleans. Where does Drew Brees rank amongst NFL quarterbacks? I think he's in the top 10. Obviously numbers, he put up some incredible, crazy numbers. He definitely deserves to be in the top 10. I don't think he's the best quarterback in NFL history, close, but he's one of the 10 best. I mean, look, he won a Super Bowl. He put up a lot of great stats. I will put it aside as being a Dolphins fan. I know a lot of people make a big deal about the fact that Miami wanted to sign him in 2006, and the doctor said, no, his shoulder is 100%. Don't sign him. They went with Dante Culpepper. And Dolphin fans ever since have always been ruminating whether if they had signed Drew Brees, whether this team's fortunes would have been different. I have no bones to pick with that one. My issue goes back to 2001 when the Dolphins could have drafted Drew Brees at the end of the first round out of Purdue. Instead, Dave Wannstedt, arguably one of the worst coaches in NFL history, decided to pick Jamar Fletcher, safety, with that pick instead of picking Drew Brees. Like Jay Fiedler was lighting it up that year. They could have picked Drew Brees back in 2001. Nope, they didn't do it, and of course they've ruined the day ever since. All right, Robert, your thoughts on Drew Brees, your favorite noodle arm quarterback?
He's definitely among the greats. Where he ranks, I think you really have to talk about where other quarterbacks rank. Certainly, Aaron Rodgers is up there. Tom Brady's up there. Maybe even your pal Dan Marino is up there, Chris. Who knows? But Brees certainly has the stats. No question about that. I think you do have to balance, and I know Aaron Rodgers has talked about this. Some of these stats are the product of longevity, right? It's not necessarily about how great you are; it's how long you've played. So, for Brees, being an NFL quarterback for about 20 years, certainly longevity helps him get those numbers up. But, there's no question what he did for New Orleans and, the great seasons that he had with that team, including the Super Bowl championship, obviously one of the highlights of his career. But, I think that there's other things that you have to look at. I know that much has been made of him having multiple 5,000-yard seasons. And I think you really have to look at, well, how good were the teams in those 5,000-yard seasons? These are all things that you have to look at, because I think Eli Manning at one point had a 5,000-yard season, or at least close to it. So, these are stats that are a product of today's NFL, which is a pass-happy league, obviously. And certainly Brees has been part of a potent offense down in New Orleans for a long time. Not going to take anything away from him, for this video. He's retiring. We've taken plenty of shots at him on this video before, so I'm not going to pile on. But, he had a great career. I'll say that. He's a Super Bowl champion quarterback. I think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and, wish him well with whatever he does. His next stop appears to be NBC. So we'll see what he does for them. And I know that there's already chatter that he might be the future future half of the tag team with Tarico calling Sunday Night Football games. We'll see how soon that happens.
Justin, go ahead.
Well, Robert, if you don't want to take shots at Drew Brees, I will. Listen, Drew Brees is out of the quarterbacks, whether it be of this era or really the Super Bowl era, that most people count among the greatest of all time, which, listen, you can't deny the statistics and the longevity. He is without a doubt a borderline top 10 quarterback of all time. But he's also the quarterback who I'm not sure we would be talking about as lovingly, or as he wouldn't be as respected had he landed in a different situation, had he not played in San Diego and New Orleans, obviously one of them being in California with a friendly weather environment, the other one being in a dome. I think a lot of his statistical accomplishments, you can credit the situation he was in. He was in an offense with Sean Payton where he threw the ball regularly 600 times a year. And when you do that, when you are consistently throwing the ball at that volume, you're going to rack up stats. So that's why my criticism of Drew Brees, and when people say like, oh, he holds all the passing records, it's kind of rung a little hollow with me, because it's a volume-based statistic. Do you think that the other quarterbacks of this era that have been far more efficient than Drew Brees, do you think they also wouldn't have put up these 5,000-yard seasons had they been throwing the ball 600 times? I'm a little skeptical about that. And then there's a limited sample size, but I'm not sure Drew Brees would have thrived had he played his career in New England or Green Bay or Chicago or anywhere, because he has a, granted, small sample size, but a limited track record of success when he's playing outdoors and in the cold. So that's kind of what separates Drew Brees for me versus a lot of these other guys. Even you want to throw in like Peyton Manning, who mostly played in a dome during his career, but did have some strong years playing in Denver, which is, a cold weather place. That's the difference for me, is that we never saw Drew Brees really handle those exterior factors like weather and stuff. I think he was limited in terms of his arm strength. Obviously, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. But listen, he had a great career. I would say that his career should be a bit of a cautionary tale for some of these quarterbacks who are pressing to play into their mid-40s, because I think Drew Brees damaged his legacy a little bit coming back and playing this year, really giving people a look at a diminished version of himself. There's two ways that kind of hanging on like he did can go. Either you look like Drew Brees and everyone's kind of making jokes at you for your entire last season because you can't throw the ball 10 yards, or Tom Brady, who goes and wins a Super Bowl at 55 years old or however old he is. So hey, great career, certainly worthy of being in the conversation for one of the best ever, or top 10 or whatever the rankings want to be. Just for me, my preference on who I think is the best, he's a step below the Mannings, the Bradys, the Montanas, the Favres, the Rodgers. He's kind of in that next tier.
It's funny. I remember when Drew Brees first played with the Chargers, he was a bust. I mean, his first 3 seasons in the NFL, he really did not do anything spectacular. And of course, that's why the Chargers drafted Phillip Rivers in 2004. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, they made the trade with the Giants to get Phillip Rivers, because as we all know, that the Chargers had the first pick and they picked Eli Manning and traded him to the Giants for Phillip Rivers. So I remember, that's what the Chargers did, that they didn't think that much of Drew Brees back then, that they actually had to do all that. So, but this shows you Drew Brees, that he was a late bloomer. His 4th, 5th season is when he started coming on. So, all right. So we're going to stay with the NFL.
Just quickly.
Yes.
Just quickly, Chris. I did look up that stat. Brees did have 5,000-yard seasons. In 3 of those seasons, the Saints either finished 8-8 or 7-9.
I mean, remember, sometimes these numbers are put up because you're losing and you got to throw the ball a lot.
Exactly.
And that's right. So, all right. So free agency, as we briefly alluded to earlier, is underway, and The Patriots are making a pretty big splash. They've signed a lot of names, tight ends and defensive players, and they've been all over the place. And they even re-signed Cam Newton too. So a lot of people are already speculating that the Patriots are back. That last year was an aberration, and 7-9, and this year they're back in it. Robert's Buffalo Bills are going to get a challenge from New England. I say hold on here. Now, look, the Patriots have rarely been a big player in free agency. And I think all three of us would agree that teams that have to do a lot in free agency usually are not going to be good teams, because I'm old fashioned. I always thought that free agency, you didn't build a team with free agency. You signed a free agent here or there, basically to like complement something or kind of fill a small gap or something that you built. Good teams were built through the draft. And, the Patriots, I think you can make a decent argument. Their drafts have not been good in a while. And maybe Tom Brady masked a lot of the flaws on that roster over the years. And now that he's gone, that they even came out even more. So I'm not ready to say that the Patriots are back. Now, look, Cam Newton is the quarterback right now. We don't know what the Patriots are going to do, whether they're going to do something in the draft this year or not. And let's also remember that until the draft is done, we don't know really the full effect of the whole off season. So it might be premature to judge teams on just what's going on in free agency so far. But let's hold off on saying that the Patriots are back to being a contender in the NFL. Robert's Bills are clearly the best team in the AFC East and arguably maybe the best team in the AFC right now. So let's hold off on anointing the return of the Patriots. Go ahead, Justin. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think these moves necessarily propel the Patriots to be the favorite in the AFC East by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that this puts them in contention, certainly for one of those wild card spots. Yes, they finished 7-9 last year, but that was a 7-9 team that really didn't have a healthy quarterback or good quarterback play for, 12 weeks. Cam Newton started off so well, and then he, tested positive for COVID, and that really that hampered him the rest of the season, I think. And we also forget just how many opt-outs that they had due to COVID last year. A lot of significant players. Dante Hightower, who was their best defensive player, aside from Stephon Gilmore, he didn't play last year. A lot of other important role players opted out. So the Patriots that showed up in 2020 were not a complete team. They were not a very deep team. And, I think the fact that they went 7-9 despite all those obstacles is kind of a reason why you can be optimistic about the team this year, assuming they get a lot of those guys back. Gilmore, as I previously mentioned him, he missed 5 games. Maybe you get a healthier season out of him. We'll see what Cam Newton can do this year. And then they do have the highest draft pick that they've had in, 20 years. They're going to pick 15th, and that'll give them an opportunity to add some more talent there. So their offense, certainly, I made my jokes about Tom Brady and, his last year with the Patriots when everyone was making excuses like, he just doesn't have the receivers to throw to. That's why he stinks. I think was a bit of an excuse, but they certainly needed an influx of talent. And the 2 tight ends they added, Hunter Henry and Juju Smith, I think they'll give them some weaponry that they didn't previously have. So listen, I think the Patriots are still one of the best coached teams in the league. They just needed a little bit of talent. They're going to have an opportunity to add in the draft. I don't see why they can't flip their record around and finish. I have to correct myself because of the 17-game season we're likely to have. I don't see why they can't finish 10-7 and grab one of those wild card spots. Bill Belichick's still the greatest coach of all time. Let's not forget.
Robert?
Yeah, I'm eager to hear from Bob Sosi about all the signings that New England made, because it certainly remakes the team. Chris, I think you're just a little scared because your dog team doesn't have a quarterback either, and
okay.
There's a lot of similarities between the Patriots and the Dolphins here. It's going to be quite the battle for second place in the division. looking
Oh.
forward to not caring all that much.
Oh.
I think that really the big additions for the Patriots, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, Matthew Judon is a huge pickup. Pass rusher there. He'll definitely he should be a force in Bill Belichick's defense. The two tight ends, this is something that, if you think of the Patriots throughout really all of the Brady years, I mean, one of the hallmarks of those teams was that they had good tight ends. Whether you're talking about Ben Watson, of course, Gronk is in the mix. So that was something that they were missing. Now they have two pretty good tight ends on their team. I don't think that these guys are anywhere close to Gronk's level, but it at least gives whoever the quarterback's going to be some weapons to throw to, which the Patriots couldn't say last year. That offense was anemic. Cam Newton, I don't think he's toast. I know you disagree, Chris. You think he's just as washed up as you are. But, I think that he has a little bit left in the tank if you give him a full off season to get in the swing of things. And obviously he'll have some weapons to throw to this time. So, Belichick's, I think he realized that they really needed to build up this team. He's no spring chicken anymore. So, committing to a full rebuild, I don't think was in the cards, rebuilding through the draft. There's only so much you can do with that, as the Buffalo Sabres have shown. He was committed to spending a lot of that money. And hey, he's made a big splash in free agency. They've picked up a lot of players, a lot of whom we haven't mentioned. They signed a couple receivers as well, some more on the defensive side. But, I think that they'll be back in contention, at least for a playoff spot. But yeah, there's still a lot of questions at quarterback. I don't think the defense will be as good as it has been in the past. So, they might be a wild card team, but they're pretty far off from being a Super Bowl contender again.
Okay. All righty, let's move on to college basketball. It's March Madness. It doesn't feel like March Madness, but it is March Madness. The tournament starts tomorrow with the first four. All four of those games will be on Thursday. Then the tournament, as we like to know it, with wall-to-wall basketball from noon to midnight, starts on Friday. So we've got our final four picks, and then also we're going to discuss Syracuse. So let's start with Syracuse first. They are in, I believe they are in the, where are they? Oh, yes, the Midwest. And they are playing San Diego State, the 6th seed. SU got in with the 11. I'll just talk about the bubble and everything. Syracuse made it. I think the last couple games there, especially the ACC tournament went against NC State was really important. So what's Syracuse going to do? I mean, look, Syracuse definitely has the potential to get to the Sweet 16. I think so. Now, are they going to? I don't think so. Okay. I think they can upset San Diego State. Okay. I believe they're a 3-point dog. I think they can upset San Diego State. Then they got to play the winner of West Virginia and Morehead State. And now West Virginia used to be in the Big East with Syracuse. So Bob Huggins is very familiar with Boeheim's zone and everything. And I think and always was very competitive against Syracuse. So I think even if Syracuse can beat San Diego State, they're probably going to lose to West Virginia. If they do beat West Virginia, then they're going to play most likely the 2nd seed Houston. And I had no idea Houston was 24-3. This shows you how much I've been following college basketball this year. But I think in a best case scenario, Syracuse gets to the second weekend. Worst case scenario, they're none and done. They lose to San Diego State in the first round. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, first of all, I was anticipating a lot of whining on social media on Selection Sunday. They were already, there was already some moaning once they announced the first two regions and Syracuse wasn't part of it. If this is what the Syracuse Oranges come down to, that, you have to, really hold your breath on Selection Sunday, then, maybe you should point the finger at somebody else other than the selection committee for for this team's status in college basketball at the moment. But hey, that's a subject that not a lot of people in this area want to broach. But I think that time has come to start talking about what the leadership of this program. That being said, just looking at this tournament, San Diego State is a pretty good team. You can't look past them. I get that, they play in a conference that, maybe the Syracuse types with the ACC think is inferior, but San Diego State's a pretty good team, and they're a 6th seed for a reason. I don't have Syracuse getting past them in my bracket. I have San Diego State winning that game. My pick aside, I do think that this team, if they play like they did in their first game of the ACC tournament, and even the first half of the game against Virginia, yeah, they can make a run. A Boeheim coach team has made a run from this position before, but this team is too inconsistent for my liking, and the fact that you have to wonder if they're going to play to that potential, it's not worth the risk. So I'm not picking them to advance out of the past the first round. I think, like you, Chris, they could be none and done in that matchup with San Diego State.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I think in the way basketball is played these days, where it's so much about threes and frees, hitting 3-pointers and hitting your free throws. Syracuse is actually, I think they're actually, for one of the few times that I can remember, they're actually a good free throw shooting team, which is obviously that's been a rare case in the recent Jim Boeheim era. Normally they stink in that category, but I'm not sure they have a lot of guys who can really make defenses fear them in terms of hitting shots from distance. Like Buddy Boeheim has really come on the last couple games. He had a great ACC tournament, and it seems strange to say that their chances kind of come down to him. But I really think that any hope that Syracuse has of going on a run here rests on Buddy Boeheim going on a James Sutherland type run here, just knocking down every single shot he takes. And as Robert said, this is an inconsistent team, and he's an inconsistent player. And I'm not sure that they've got it in them. We talked a couple weeks ago about, or maybe it was last week, about just the Syracuse program and their chances of getting in. And, I kind of said, like, it really doesn't matter to me. And it's sad that the expectations for the program, or the discussion around the program every year, has turned into, will they get into the tournament? 10 years ago, it was about, is this team good enough to win national championships? And that's how it was the 10 years before that, when they finally did come through and win a national championship. And it's just sad to see kind of the state of Syracuse basketball, that this is something that we have to have an annual conversation about. Aim higher, guys. Like, start talking about being the best team in the ACC, or being a legit contender for a title, and being a program that can get one of those top few seeds in the bracket. Syracuse is the 11th seed. Sure, they could go on a run, but I don't see it.
Well, I mean, going to the ACC was the big thing. I mean, they had no choice; they had to. But I mean, they dominated the Big East. Realistically, the only other good team in the Big East back then was UConn. I mean, it was a 2-team league. UConn and Syracuse were the two heavyweights. Now they're the ACC, so they got Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest. I mean, it's a different league. I mean, no doubt about that. So, all right, our final 4 picks. This has been, like I said, this has been one of the weirdest years in college basketball history. We've had programs pause for weeks on end because of COVID tests. Duke and Kentucky aren't in the tournament. I mean, and justifiably so. I'm not saying they should be. Neither team really lit the world on fire this year and don't deserve to be in. So that being said, my final 4, in the South, I got Baylor. In the Midwest, I got Illinois. In the East, I got Alabama. And in the West, Gonzaga. Go figure. And for a national champion, I'm stating the obvious. Gonzaga, they're clearly the best team. That's all you hear about. They haven't lost it all this season. Upsets can happen in the tournament, no doubt about it. And this is a different type of tournament. But I think Gonzaga is going to cut down the nets. Go ahead, Justin. Your final 4 picks in national champion.
Well, I just want to make it clear, I barely paid attention to college basketball this year, because what's the point? As you mentioned, it was such a crazy year. It's all a crapshoot. Any of these teams, their seasons could end without even losing a game because they could have a player test positive for COVID. And because of that, I will not be filling out a bracket, because if I were to lose money or lose a chance at money because some dope couldn't follow the COVID rules and their team got kicked out of the tournament, I don't know what I would do. It's bad enough I have to worry about stressing about fantasy football during the fall. I don't need this March Madness nonsense. So to be honest, my picks are total dart throws. My first dart throws since probably last February, thanks to New York State's rules on playing darts. It's currently banned, or it's mostly been banned for the past year. So here's my dart throws. Gonzaga, I'll take them out of the West. I'll take BYU out of the East. I'll take Clemson out of the Midwest. And I always do it. They got a near and dear space right in my heart. I'll take Wisconsin to come out of the South. I do every year. I pick Wisconsin to go farther than they really have a chance of going. But hey, if you don't know anything, who cares?
6,
And then
7, and 9 teams. Yeah.
National championship. Yeah, Gonzaga, whatever. Go undefeated in the season that, is a crapshoot. Go ahead.
All right, Robert, you got the last word.
Yeah, this is I will say that this was a tough year and really tough to look at these teams, because so many of them really, when you look at their schedules, they only played conference opponents or largely conference opponents. And so that made it difficult really to assess these teams. But, I look at the West, I really think that potential Gonzaga Iowa regional final will determine who wins the national championship. Gonzaga is just an all-around great team. They've been a force this season. Iowa has Luka Garza, arguably the best player in college basketball, and he has a pretty good supporting cast there. So I think the winner of that regional final is going to win the national title, and I do have Gonzaga coming out of that region. In the South, I have Baylor beating out Arkansas. That was a tough one because Arkansas is a pretty good offensive team, but Baylor can match them, and so I have Baylor going on. Illinois impressed me in the Big Ten tournament. I watched some of that action, so I have them coming out of the Midwest. That is the Syracuse region, and then the East, I think that this is really the toughest region. Chris, you have Alabama coming out of there. Ritz, you mentioned BYU. This is really a crapshoot. I think Michigan is a pretty good team, but I think they are beatable. And, I have Florida State advancing out of this region and going to the Final Four. It was a toss-up between them and Texas. I think both those teams play pretty good basketball. In the national title game, I have Gonzaga and Illinois, and Gonzaga winning it all. So, yeah, I think that this is Gonzaga's year. Everything lined up nicely for them. You look at some of the teams that didn't make it. The Dukes and Kentuckys aren't in it this year. It's just an unusual year. And as Justin mentioned, we'll see how COVID affects all this because, they're going to have a little bubble. Or at least an attempt at a bubble in Indiana, but these teams are going to be moving around. They're playing all over, in Indianapolis and then, different parts of Indiana. Going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out because, you can try to avoid COVID, but as the conference tournament showed, there were moments where teams weren't successful with that. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I think that, I think you and I, Chris, we picked 3 1 seeds to go. I think that this is a year for, the top seeded teams. I could easily see 4 teams going in just because of the differences in, talent level and gameplay so far. But yeah, I think that this is really Gonzaga's tournament to lose this year.
All right, gentlemen, we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, like I said, I was going to say what Justin just said. I didn't do a bracket either. I really have no great idea of what's going to happen and no desire really to do the stuff I usually do in filling out a bracket, whatever. It's just, this whole year has been, you know, like I said, because of COVID, it hasn't been your typical year. So, but we'll, you know, I'll watch the games, no doubt about that. And maybe that'll kind of rekindle my interest. So we'll see. So, all right, guys, it's been fun as always. Thanks for joining. Yes.
Before we end, I have to give a shout out to one of your offspring, Chris, Keishira. She has written 2 columns, as I understand it, for the Cayuga Community College newspaper. And I thought to myself, wow, a Shira who can write a column every week. Just an amazing feat. Congratulations to her. Hopefully she can teach Dad how to do that on a regular basis because she's doing a pretty good job at it.
Wow, I wasn't anticipating a dig, but you know, there it is. So what else is new? Yeah, maybe I'll write something. Just have to find a decent topic, but you know.
Well-written columns, by the way. Her columns, not yours. Her columns.
You know, I look, most of the credit goes to her, but she did inherit a little bit of it from her mom. So yes. So all right, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.